Yeah, you could have fixed that. I mean, who's the bigger disappointed mixer than me?
Can't argue with that.
Exactly! I mean, who could... Ah!
What? Just sit there.
Who the hell are you?
Come on, surely you should know by now.
Well, first off, don't call me Shirley. And secondly, no, I don't know who you are. You just showed up. You're being very vaguely mysterious right now.
I am Iron Dan.
My videos are dumb. They're not that dumb.
Did my presence give away any clues?
Presents?
Remember when you were messing around on your phone while reviewing the film The Mitchell vs. the Machines?
Yes.
Well, while you left, that was my consciousness going into your phone with a straight lightning.
Oh, well that explains me saying...
This phone is regular. It is not going to do any harmful damage.
But wait a second, if you were just a data presence, how are you sitting here right now?
You made more Marvel reviews all throughout the days, in a very controversial way, giving it very unfair low grades. So that not only gave me the idea of getting the Iron Man hat, but it also made me feel the energy to go to my physical form. Do you recall having any bad dreams?
Well, yes, once after I reviewed What If, and that's when I went and then went to bed. Holy moly. That was you?
Correct. And so here we are.
Well, I guess you're correct on that point. Get out! We're doing sick of the way guys plays. I'll call the police. Well, you got a point. You know what I was thinking? Wait a minute. How'd you do that?
Glitch technology. Impressive, isn't it?
Okay, but why are you here?
I'm here to watch you review my favorite movie ever, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But I warn you, make any bad complaints about it, it grows me my strength.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie about my thoughts on the movie, okay? My job as a reviewer isn't like to point out reflective opinion. It's just to explain what I think of a movie, show my opinions and defend them.
We'll see about that.
Fine, whatever, let's just get to the review. God. For those of you who love this movie, do me a favor and just go. Go. Before I review this movie, because this is going to be a very controversial review for me to make. Hey guys, it's Daniel here, back with my Marvel Cinematic Universe reviews, and today I'm here to review the newest Marvel Cinematic Universe film, or at least that was recent, before the new Thor movie, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness picks up with the adventures of our buddy, the not Sorcerer Supreme himself, Dr. Stephen Strange, as he travels among the multiverse, as he gets in an adventure with a new kid named America Chavez, who has some powers that is definitely not what Strange was expecting, as well as getting an adventure with both her and Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, as they again travel through a battle of the multiverse, as well as getting into mad situations. At least that's what you're supposed to be thinking about the movie, but honestly, it goes into more detail in that. just maybe not quite the biggest detail as what it was expecting. Now, I can tell you right now that I was one of those people who was definitely really excited to see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It was like one of the top tiers along with Spider-Man No Way Home, because, you know, it's the Multiverse of Madness, considering how Doctor Strange is like the master of the mystic arts, and considering how it's like the possible revelations they can do with like CGI in terms of Doctor Strange. The fact that he's going through the Multiverse of Madness, the possibilities that they can do is just endless. And the MCU has been touching on the vast multiverses before, like WandaVision, What If, Loki, Spider-Man No Way Home. That's really interesting to learn. And we also got back our old characters, like we have like Benedict Cumberbatch reprised no roles as, of course, Dr. Stephen Strange, but as you can see on the poster and in the trailers, Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, and the trailers got us very intrigued and interested to see how this like supposed horror film was going to turn out. So, after watching it twice now, I have to say, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm torn by how I feel about this film. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. It's just a middle ground of a section between good and bad. Not saying with a bit more good than bad, but if I was to explain Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in a sentence, it's an entertaining but extremely disappointing extravaganza. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to get into more detail about it, but I'm not going to lie. As much as it wasn't bad, it did turn out to be a little tiny bit disappointing. Now, I'm not actually saying that I hate the film, because I just want to make it clear that I do not hate this film. I just think it's okay. And with that said, let's get into the things that define it as being just okay. Because before we get to like all the problems, let's talk about some of the good, shall we? The first big praise that I must give this film is that it arguably has some of the greatest visual effects I've seen in any Marvel Cinematic Universe film. The visuals in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is just so eye-candy to watch. It makes you feel like you're going on through this trip, and it just feels so orgasmic, guys. That's how great each and one of the visual effects were in this film. Whenever we actually go through the multiverse, they have giant landscapes of different cultures that these multiverses bring. My personal favourite is this one purple multiverse that, my god, just looks amazing. I honestly wanted them to spend more time there because they only spend about 2 scenes in there. Very short, but when we do get to see it, it definitely looks amazing. And it's what I came to see, and I honestly give some praise for people who managed to go see the movie in the cinema in IMAX, because to see that on a big screen, it looked beautifully made. I went to go see it the first time in the cinema, so it definitely looked good in the cinema, and then watching it again, it still looks amazing. It definitely seems like that this movie manages to capture the spirit of the past movies that Doctor Strange has been in, because, you know, with their visual effects and creative ways of movement, it's definitely relevant here in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. There were some action scenes that I thought were pretty cool and were okay from time to time, but yeah, I'll get to that later. But the action scenes were okay, and there were some really bonkers moments in this movie that I was not expecting at all when I first went to go see it in the cinema. Because, again, judging by the visual effects, but also the characters and actors in these scenes, make it even more like, bleh. That was weird, and that's what I wanted. And for a small, brief moment, I did. Although I will admit that those bonkers moments were too few and far apart, and I'll get to that later. And the last thing that I really enjoyed about the movie is that the acting, for the most part, was good. I still really liked Benedict Cumberbatch as the man himself, Dr. Stephen Strange. He seems to be his, like, charming, wise, but charismatic self, and there's definitely something very charming about the way that he handles, like, America Chavez and how he handles all the threats, because no matter what situation he's in, he's both very serious, but also manages to keep a smile on him, almost like Tony Stark. Although I'll admit, maybe not make him entirely Tony Stark. But I did like his character, and I was definitely more intrigued about his, like, little, like, side story, like his little character arc. It's not really big, but I understand where he was coming from, and it definitely made me sympathetic towards him. I also really like the new character of America Chavez. She seems very interesting. You want to know more about this character, and her power sets are very awesome to watch. I won't say what her powers are, but they are very good, and I definitely bought the chemistry between her and Doctor Strange. You definitely feel like they bounce off each other very well. They did really, really cool. One of the standouts, though, about the movie is that Elizabeth Olsen comes back to reprise her role as Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, and I will say she definitely gave it her all in this movie. There were so many times where she definitely took the spotlight, and honestly, a lot of Doctor Strange's moments felt like they weren't really as much relevant as Scarlet Witch in this movie, because she definitely steals a lot of scenes in this movie. While she's not the greatest in this movie, as she was in some of the past movies that she's been in, I still really liked her, because this is after the events of WandaVision, so she's still dealing with those past bits in WandaVision, and it's definitely interesting to see how she handles it, and very, very intense and menacing ways. And that's all I'm going to say about Scarlet Witch. She's definitely really cool in this movie. So yeah, I definitely consider a lot of good things about this movie. That definitely makes it bigger than I was expecting. But now, guys, unfortunately, we reached the point of the review very quickly than I was expecting, where I have to talk about the myriad of issues with this film. And there is a lot, guys. There's a lot. Now, before I begin, I just want you to say that these problems, like, don't weigh the film down to, like, oh my god, it's so terrible, because I did enjoy a majority of the movie. Again, I just said it's okay, but these issues just can't make it a bigger experience than I was expecting them. Because when I first saw the film, I gave it a bit of a higher grade, but after watching it again, I started noticing more things that I'm just like, God, they could have easily fixed this. I just want to let you know, these are just my opinions on how I feel about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. If you agree with me, you agree with me. If you disagree with me, you disagree with me. As long as we can keep a calm flow, everything's going to be fine. And with that said, here we go. The biggest problem with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is that it is way too all over the place, and it is way too rushed. I mean, I could not believe how fast they got to every single scene in this film. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be slow, but I honestly wasn't thinking it was going to be that fast. I thought it was just going to take its time and find a leeway. But no, it's just like, oh, this thing happens, and then like 2 minutes later, this thing happens. I mean, literally, the main conflict of this film starts in the first, like, 10 to 20 minutes into the film. I was, like, puzzled, because, I mean, I assumed that the conflict would happen, like, a few minutes after the 20-minute mark, but the main conflict just happens, like, between 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and it's just like, really? I mean, we only spent about 5 minutes with Doctor Strange and how he's doing in life before he sets off on this journey. That's about it. That's really not enough to really make us soak in with the characters. And speaking of that, the film definitely lacks focus, and it ends up becoming a confused mess. It doesn't know what on earth it wants to be about, because it just throws random scenarios into the film just as much as they can, just so like, oh my god, this is really cool. Like, there are so many fan service moments in this film. Especially, like, in the second act of the film, which, don't get me wrong, it was cool, but honestly, I could not deny that a lot of it just felt like, remember that, look at this character, look at this character, oh my god, look at all this action, look at all what's happening there, blah, 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 blah. The pacing's horrendous! It's horrendous! The pacing and like the film just seriously, just you need to slow down a little bit, man. Come on. I just felt like, because we have like so much build up, this story actually could have been a really fantastic story. It would have made a blast to watch, and it is from time to time, but because the pacing is just so fast, and there's multiple things jumping all over the place and getting in the middle of a plot, it just felt like, oh my god, just pick a plot line already, and just you let us focus on what is going on. And speaking of focus again, another major issue I had with the film is dealing with some of the like little like camera cinematography editing moments. And there's two major problems that I noticed about the movie. First of all, while I did enjoy the action scenes from time to time, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the action just felt like fluff to me. Like, it wasn't really hard, it was just like visuals like popping all over the place during the action scenes, and I couldn't really feel any like real hits. It was just like explosions all over the place, and I wanted to like actually feel the punches and all. Like, the last MCU movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, had much better action than this. And secondly is dealing with some of the camera choice, because in my opinion, the biggest thing that I noticed while handling a camera position and character movement is dealing with the very blurry image whenever a character moves. Sometimes it feels like something that you would see in like a 2010 superhero movie, not a 2022 superhero movie. Like, I'll show you an example. You see in some of my, you see this blurry hand moving in the background, and you see some of the camera choices I made in some of my past videos where I'm moving blurringly. That is how some of the movements of characters happen in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and I kind of wonder, was that like the same camera they were using to film these scenes, or is that a different camera, like a more old-fashioned camera that makes, not really that old, but still makes it look like characters are moving like they're in like a sitcom or something. Now, I was very interested to see this part of the movie, and that part is that back when the movie was first announced, they announced this was going to be like the first scary MCU movie, like this was going to be their first attempt of making a horror film. But guess what? Where's the scare? Where is the horror? I mean, I get some of like the crazy looks that these characters are showing, but I don't think it really counts as horror. There's only one scene in the movie where I felt like they got kind of good horror, because it actually did have a good, like, scare, but that was, like, in the middle of the film, and it took a while to do it, and not really the rest of the movie. But it wasn't that scary, but, you know, it got one shock of me. But honestly, I felt like Moon Knight had more of a horrific vibe than this. Now, I've been mentioning a bunch of times that story and the focus and the pacing was a bit too rushed and unfocused. But here's one aspect of the movie that is probably the most mixed bag, in my opinion, because I'm really not sure how to feel about the movie handling this. And that's the fact that, without spoiling anything, this movie has a quote-unquote villain. Like, so at least someone who we know who acts villainous. And the behaviours of this character, I felt like, could have been understandable, and it is definitely understandable, but also a bit hypocritical, because they're trying their best to say, oh, I'm not the monster, I'm just doing what's right for my life, and I'm not really gonna hurt anyone. Oh, but I'm like doing these like criminal and murderous things left and right. That just seemed a bit too hypocritical, and also feels like goes against like a past, like something at the end of WandaVision. And two, and probably the most notable thing I noticed about this movie, in terms of the film's villain, is that, did we even need a villain in this film? I actually felt like the movie could have worked without a villain. In fact, it'd be really cool, maybe the first MCU movie to not really have that much of a villain, because honestly, I can't really remember an MCU movie that didn't have a villain, so this actually would have been a first-timer, and instead of dealing like with a physical threat, the threat could be the Multiverse of Madness itself. Maybe all of these universes clashing among each other, and Doctor Strange, America Chavez, and Scarlet Witch trying to survive it. I'd say that would have been the Multiverse of Madness right there. where is the multiverse of madness in this film? That's honestly like the biggest issue I had with this film. That is the lack of the multiverse of madness itself. What, you're trying to say that the villain chasing our heroes through like 3 universes, that's supposed to be the multiverse of madness? Man, that really sucks as a multiverse of madness. It would have been really more awesome and more like expanded if the different universes were clashing among each other really hard, introducing monsters and all, and that would have been fine. That actually would have been a bigger threat than this villain, which honestly is a big threat, but honestly I just wish they handled it a bit better. I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand the motivations of this villain, and it is a good villain. I just felt like they never really needed to be a villain, or just didn't need to be in the movie. And basically, I know a lot of people are going to say, Daniel, basically most of your problems are you were disappointed by the wasted potential. Is that such a bad thing? I mean, for a movie called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the one thing I expect from Doctor Strange being in the Multiverse of Madness is to actually go across what really feels like a Multiverse of Madness. So you could have done like my idea for a plot, or else the film's title is very misleading. And the climax of the film? Wow. Again, judging by how little they put into actually making a Multiverse of Madness, this climax just felt so little and non-grandscape. I mean, so much is going on, but it just never really had a good locale for a climax, and it was very short as well. At least in the first film, the climax was more grand, and they actually got a good solution for how to resolve the climax. It was pretty long, and it definitely had a lot of more intense action. The first movie's climax was really cool. This one, not so much. And honestly, I feel like some of the problems would be fixed if the movie was a bit longer, because it's only like, what, 2 hours long? And honestly, it could have been like 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and that would have been fine, but it didn't really get as much focus as I was expecting. So, those are my pros and flaws for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash for this film, because there's like more issues than good I've mentioned in this video, a lot of people are now going to feel like I hate the film, and I'm just going to make it clear that, again, I do not hate the film. I'm torn by how I feel about this film after 2 times of viewing, and I just can't really get totally gripped into the movie. I mean, I was from time to time, but I just expected better, because, again, for a film called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, this could have been, like, one of the best MCU films, because, again, it has, like, some of the greatest visuals, it has a few good jokes, decent action, it carries a bit of the spirit from the first Doctor Strange movie, and Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen definitely took a lot of the movie. In fact, Elizabeth Olsen's performance was great. She definitely handled all the emotional scenes very well. She was really good. But because of all the gripes and the fast pacing and the poor focus and the wasted potential, it just made me feel kind of disappointed. But that's not to say I hate the film. I think it's just okay. It's a decent film with less good than I was expecting, but the good amount that I got was really high, that it definitely, like, kept it from getting a lower grade, because this film is going to get a 3 out of 5. I just think it's decent. But if you do really love the film, that's perfectly fine. You could love this film. But it's not to say everyone's going to feel the same way. But, again, it's enjoyable for what it is. Just needed some bit more work on it. But even though this review goes into more difficult routes than I was expecting, my opinion doesn't justify everyone. I do want to know what you guys think about it. Do you love it? Or do you hate it? Or do you think it's just a bit more disappointing, but okay for the most part, like I did? And I want to ask you a question. What film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe would you have a controversial thought on, where people really love it, but you have a slight beg to differ thought? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will get some more reviews out for you guys. And I'm Daniel, reviewing movies, TV shows, doing videos. Till then, peace out, man. Okay, I am Dan. I reviewed Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Are you happy now?
What? You underestimate Doctor Strange? That's not fair. I love this movie, so you're supposed to love it too.
Dude, I have nothing against you for loving Doctor Strange too. It's perfectly fine. Go ahead and, like, crave it as one of your greatest movies ever. But even though I think it's not bad, I think you need to know how other people are not going to have the same opinion, okay? And besides, what happened to you being stronger when I make a controversial thought?
Nah, we just said that so I'd be afraid so I wouldn't get the movie low rating, but guess it didn't work anyway, so I'm a total loser.
Wow. You thought that I will be scared of you because I make a very, very controversial thought on a movie. You have no idea how strong opinions from critics on YouTube can be.
Right, so I don't wait my time here, I'll just go. But I warn you, someday I'll be back to war, Phil and Daniel. To war!
Oh, he's scary. I better keep a watch out for that guy.